Hello my friends, welcome to the first video in this NestJS series. In this video we will discuss core concepts inside NestJS and we will build a RESTful API together and we will learn a lot along the way. I'm so excited, so enough talking and let's get started. This channel is 100% supported by independent individuals like you, so if you want to support me and support my content and my work, consider going to the link down below in the description box where you can buy me a pizza or two. So let's get started in NestJS. First of all, what is NestJS? NestJS is a Node.js framework. While Node.js is a very minimalistic runtime that lets the users pick and choose the kind of tools they need for their applications, like handling requests and API responses and middlewares and WebSockets and how to do the file structure and so on. NestJS is a framework that takes care of all of that so that we as developers can think of or spend our time on actually building applications instead of doing some configurations. So NestJS creates an out-of-the-box solution, an out-of-the-box application that is scalable and loosely coupled and also testable and maintainable. Now, what is loosely coupled and what is maintainable and testable? We will talk about that when we talk about something called dependency injection. Also, NestJS is a framework that will not lock you inside some specific implementation of Node.js like Express or Fastify, because you can plug in any solution or any Node.js solution that you feel comfortable with. By default, it works with Express.js, but you can plug in Fastify like it is mentioned inside the documentations. So, and also another great thing about NestJS is that you not only build HTTP solutions like Express.js, but also you can build like RESTful APIs, GraphQL APIs, microservices, WebSockets, anything you want, even CLIs. You can build CLIs with NestJS. And NestJS uses something called dependency injection, as I told you before. This dependency injection system makes our classes or our files easily testable and maintainable, and I will show you later how to do that. Okay, so the first step in learning NestJS is actually to install something called the CLI. So NestJS has a official CLI, and in order to install that, we go to npm install. I want to install it as a global dependency, and then I will write at NestJS /CLI. Now I already installed the CLI, but for you might not install it before, so give it a shot and wait for it until it completes. So once the CLI completes installing, you need to make sure that it is installed. To do that, we go to nest-version, and it should give me some number. In my case, 10.4.2 because it's the latest version so far. Okay, now in order to create a NestJS application, we go to nest new and click enter, and here it will prompt me with the name of the application. In my case, I already created a folder. If you can see here, I already created a folder called pizzeria. So because I want to create a pizzeria application, so I want to click on dot in order to create the application inside this folder, and click on enter and then npm. So the idea of our application, how we want to build it, is that we want to build an app where we have where the users, like signed in users or signed up users, can actually get access to pizzas and maybe remove pizzas or create a new pizza or create a new item. Let's suppose it's a restaurant where you can add content, but of course we don't need everyone to add, so we will limit the ability for users to add or modify our resources to only logged in users and probably admins. So we will see how in the future how we will implement authentication and authorization, where we build roles and like admin role or like signed in user role, and also build authentication, because we don't need everyone to get access to our resources and our amazing pizzeria items. So yeah, let's wait for this application to be installed. It should be done in a minute or two. I'm waiting. Okay, as you can see, it's complete. And now if I see here, I see all the files and the folders that the Nest CLI created for me. And the first step I usually make is when working with NestJS specifically, since it's already in TypeScript, and also on top of that, it uses ESLint as a linter. So I usually go to the ESLinter configurations and usually comment it out so that I don't get bothered by all the rules that are applied inside our code base, because TypeScript is already annoying and we have ESLint on top of that. I think that's too much, at least for me. If you think that's normal, you can keep it. But for me, I want to comment it out. So let's see what is inside our application. We have the source folder, okay? We have the source folder. This is the source folder. This is the bulk of our application where we will build everything inside in here, this source folder. And inside here, you can see a file called main.ts. Main.ts is the entry point of our application, which means that if we want to do any root level work, like connecting to a database, and you will see later how we can create a global validation, we do that inside this file because it's the root level. It's the first file that NestJS reads in order to create the application. And inside here, you can see the Nest factory that creates the application for us using something called module, app module. We will talk about that later. And then uses this app in order to listen on port 3000. And yeah, so let's start our application in development mode. If I go to package.json, you see I have this script start dev. So I want to run npm run start dev in order to start our application in development mode and in watch mode actually. Okay, so I want to close this and go back to main.ts. Okay, from main.ts, I told you about app module. So let's open app module and see what's inside in here. Inside the app module, we have something called a class, because NestJS uses classes heavily. And on top of that, we have here something called a decorator. And decorators are just ways to add metadata to classes, to functions, and so on. So in this case, this metadata adds some, this decorator adds some metadata to this class. And usually it has the module class, it has 4 properties that we can add to the class. And here the left one is exports. Okay, we don't need to add all of them since exports is an empty array or imports an empty array. We don't need to add any of that, but it comes by default with controllers and providers. So what is a controller and what is a provider? We will talk about services or providers. They are the same thing. We'll talk about them in the next video. But for now, I want you to understand a concept, a very important concept, which is when you go to controller, okay, and the controller is responsible for handling incoming requests and also outcoming responses. So it's the interface that is responsible for talking back and forth between the user and the API. Okay, for example, here get hello, or let's say get pizzas. Okay, if I want to create this function where the user can get all the pizzas in our application, I define the function here that runs whenever the request hits this endpoint. And then I will use the service. Okay, use the service. The service actually has implementations like this function. This implementation talks to the database to retrieve all the information required for our endpoint to run fine, right? So for example, if I want to get all the pizzas, the logic on how to talk to database, how to transform the data coming from the database to a shape that the user wants to see, okay, all this logic goes inside something called a service. Okay, if I want to go here, this is the service. The service is the last layer that deals with the database, but the controller is the layer that talks to the service, and it is responsible, the controller is only responsible for incoming requests and outcoming responses. So this is a very important concept to understand. And what is a service and how to build one, we'll talk about that later. And about the controller, we will talk about them today. Okay, so this is the idea of service and module and controller. And the idea of module in the first place is that we want to create our application in a way that all the logic, all the features, and everything related to our features is encapsulated in its own module. Okay, I will show you later. When we want to build pizzas, for example, all the logically related to pizzas, like getting pizzas, updating pizzas, creating and updating whatever, all this logic should live in a separate module, and this module called pizzas module. And if you want to talk about authentication and users and how to sign up user, how to sign in user and log out a user, we build all that logic inside a different module called users module. And usually we have the app module. The app module is the root level module, is the main module. And if you remember, I go to main TS. This is the main module that Nest Factory uses in order to bootstrap our application or start or initiate our application. So usually what we have is the app module is the base, and the app module is connected to all kinds of modules like pizzas and users or whatever. And and we implement the specific logic for each module in its separately. We don't combine things together. We can import and export logic, but usually we isolate all the logic in its own module. So let's see how to do that. If I go to a new terminal here and write nest generate module and click enter. Now NestJS CLI will prompt me with the name of the module. I want to name my module pizzas because I'm creating logic specific for dealing with the pizzas or the database. So I click enter, and you see here that a new folder called pizzas was created, and inside it I have a new file, pizzas.module.ts, also was created for me. And you see here it's a class and this is a module. There is something interesting that also happened since we are using the CLI, which is if I go to the app module, as you remember, the app module is the base module where all modules are connected. So in the app module, I have the imports array. Automatically, NestJS imports the pizzas module inside this app module, which means that the app module is connected to the pizzas module, and we can move from there. So now I want to create a controller inside the pizzas module. To do that, I want to run nest generate controller, and I want to give it a name. The name is, as usual, pizzas. We name it the same name as the module so that NestJS puts this controller inside the same folder. And I click on enter. And you can see that the controller was created. It also creates this testing file. I don't need the testing file, but I can show you a different way in order to create a controller without a testing file. So to do that, I go to the terminal and run nest generate controller, and then I can add a flag which is no spec. No spec flag means do not add any testing file related to this controller. I give it the name pizzas and it should be fine. So you see here the pizzas controller is created. And if I check inside the pizzas module, I see that also inside the controller array, I have the pizzas controller was added automatically by NestJS CLI, which is also why it is important to create all these files like modules and controllers and stuff inside the CLI instead of just creating files and creating class yourself, so that you don't bother yourself by connecting the dots and connecting the controller with its own module and connecting module with the base app module and so on. So you should always use the CLI for creating your resources. So anyway, I want to clear the terminal, and it's time to check inside the controller and play around here and create our endpoints. The first endpoint that we want to create is the get endpoint, which comes from the NestJS common module. And I want to create a function called get all pizzas because I want this endpoint to be responsible for returning all the pizzas inside our database. Now we don't have a database right now, but we will implement the database in the next video because it's its own topic and it requires its own time to create and plug in the database with the NestJS application. For now, we don't need with database. I just want to return a string, which is all pizzas. Okay, and also let's test that inside Postman. If I go to Postman here, get all pizzas, and click on send, you see that I got the response back, all pizzas. But if you look carefully, I added a route here, which is pizzas route, to the base URL, which is localhost 3000. So I added this pizzas route. Where does this come from? It comes from the controller, because I said that this controller class, all the routes inside this class are under the pizzas route. So anything I add here must start with pizzas. I can show you, for example, if I add here all, and if I try to access this route, I no longer can access it using just pizzas, because the base route does not correspond with anything. I have to add /all and then click send. And now I see all pizzas, okay? But I don't need this all string, so I want to remove it. And let's try, as we are creating a RESTful API, I want to create an endpoint where I can get a specific pizza with a specific ID. Because when we save our items or our pizzas or products, whatever they are, inside our databases, they are assigned some IDs. So I want to get a specific pizza with a specific ID. And I do that by using a dynamic route, like in this case, by adding a colon and then ID or whatever parameter name that we want to use. So get ID, and then here I want to define a function which is get one pizza, because I want to get only one. And then it's a function that return a string pizza with ID colon, and I can use these in order to pass a variable here. Now we don't have the variable for ID, so let's define that inside the get one pizza function here, or the route handler. It's called route handler, or the function. I want to define a parameter, a decorator, which is also imported from NestJS common. And inside this parameter, I want to give it a name, which is params. And this params is actually an object. And this object has ID. Why ID? Because I called it ID. I can change this to another name, and then I have to change this to the same name. Anyway, it's called ID for now. So ID, its type is string. And I can actually destructure the ID as pizza ID, like this case, equals params. And I add semicolon. And then I use the pizza ID here. And now it should work fine. If I go to Postman, let's see. So get one pizza. I'm getting pizza number 12. If I click send, I set pizza with ID number 12. If I set pizza with ID 15, I get pizza with ID 15. So it's working as expected. Okay, now let's see how we can create another route handler, which is post. The post route handler is used when we want to create a resource inside our database. In our case, we are creating pizzeria, so we want to create a pizza. So post, and then I want to define a function called create pizza. And inside here, I want to add body. Okay, the body is also a decorator, comes from the same package. Wait. Okay, so it comes from the same package, which is NestJS common. And I want to name the body, and its type is, for now, it's any, but later I will change that to a different type. And since it's a function, I need to return something, which is, let's return the body, so that whatever the user sends in the request, I will return back as a response. Yeah, let's see if I go to Postman. and create new pizza. And create new pizza, I have this JSON object, name, price. This should be margherita, like this. And then price is 45, or let's say 10, whatever it is. Size small, toppings, cheese. Let's click on send, and it's sent correctly. And as you see, the response is the same as the incoming request, because we are returning the same body. Okay, now let's see how we can update. But for update, we use a method or HTTP method called patch. So I want to import patch from the same module. It is called NestJS common. And I want to define a function as usual, update pizza. And inside update pizza, I want to update a specific pizza, which is I have to define an ID. And to define ID, I have to add here a dynamic route. Don't forget that, because it will throw an error. So update pizza. Here I want to define a parameter. The parameter is called params, and its type is an object of ID string, like in this case, string. Yes, and then at the same time I receive not only a parameter, but also a body. So I want to receive the body object, like this case, and the body is called body, and its type is, for now, it's any. As I told you, we will have a more accurate type in the future. I mean, in this video, not in a different video in this series. So anyway, the body, and then here let's return also the body as the same case. Of course, I'm implementing any logic regarding updating or creating, because I don't have a database. But in the next video, when we implement database, we will redefine the structure here, and we will see how we can add logic to actually create a resource, like create a pizza or update a pizza. Anyway, this is body, and return the same body. If I go to a patch request, like here, if you see, it's a patch request, and I want to send it to pizza/1, and I want to update the name. Okay, so I'll click on send. You see, it's pizza margherita. There is another type of pizza that I like. It's Turkish, called kebab. So yeah, you see, whatever I send in the request is the same as in the response. Okay. Now let's see finally how we can delete a specific pizza, which is also should be intuitive by now. The same logic. I want to define a delete decorator, and also add the ID dynamic route. And inside here, I want to define a function called delete pizza. And I want to accept a parameter called params, which is ID of type string. Okay. Now I want to delete or to return. Yeah, let's return the same, or return a deleting pizza with ID of, I wanted to also destructure, like in this case before. So I want to copy paste. Yeah, everything is working fine now. If I go to Postman, delete, let's copy paste. Here I want to define a route, a dynamic route, sorry, which is I want to delete pizza number 1, and click send, and you see deleting pizza with ID number 1. So everything is working as expected. Now let's see other core concepts inside NestJS and how we can implement them in our current application. So I want you to, first we have the any keyword here. I don't want any inside our application, so let's work on changing that. The type that we want to create here is something called a DTO. Let's go to an empty terminal. I run nest generate. I want to generate a class, just an empty class, nothing fancy about this class, like a module or controller. It's not specific, it's just generic class. And I want to give it a name, but also I can define where this class will be created. So I want it to be created inside the pizzas route and inside a folder called DTO. I will explain that now. And yeah, click on, no, I want to give it a name, which is pizzas.dto. I click on enter. So you can see that inside this pizzas folder, I created DTO called, pizzas DTO. For some reason, it also created a folder called pizzas DTO. I don't need that. So I want to remove the folder. Okay, so this is the pizzas DTO. If you see, it's just a simple class. And inside this class, I can define properties. So what is DTO and what is the purpose of a DTO? A DTO is, let's here write it above so you can remember it. DTO equals to data transfer object. So DTO is a data transfer object, and the purpose of a DTO is to define the shape of incoming requests and outgoing responses. So the incoming requests we have are, in our case here, in the controller. Okay, in the controller, if I go to, for example, the create pizza, the body is the incoming request, and I need to define a specific shape to that body, like price, name, size of the pizza. Okay, so let's define that inside our DTO here. I want to create name, which is a string, also price, which is a number, and also size. Size should be an enum. The idea of enum in TypeScript is enums are specific strings or specific values that we want to create. So if I want my size to be small, large, or medium, if I define it as a string, now string can be anything. String is a generic idea. Okay, it's a generic form of strings. I can write anything. I can write my name as a size, but of course my name is not the size of pizza. So I need to define something called an enum. So let's create an enum in TypeScript. Let's give it a name, pizzas, or pizza enum, or size enum. Or I think the better name is pizza size. I know defining names for our variables inside the computer size is the hardest thing, as they say, so it's fine. Now I want to create an enum called pizza size, and inside this enum I want to define some values, which is small, which must be a string of small, like this, and also medium, which must be a string called medium, or I can define it as large, which is large, like this. Okay, now it's working fine, I think. I want to export. Yeah, it's already exported. And this DTO should be the type inside our controller, right? So let's change that to create. Okay, here I want to rename the name of the DTO. I call it pizzas DTO, but it's a very generic name, so I want to call it create pizzas DTO, like this. And here create pizza DTO. Now I think it's working fine. If I go to the controller, inside this controller, I want to change the type of body to this DTO. Okay, and yeah, everything is as expected. Now, if I go to Postman, if I go to create pizza, I should see the same values that I sent must be the same values that I got in the response. But what if I decided to change the price from number to a string, like hello? Okay, of course, hello is not a valid price, but there is nothing inside our code base that says that this is wrong, this is an error. Price must be a number, not a string. So that's the value of adding DTOs, because we can install a package called npm I class validator. Okay, I should wait a little bit until it's installed. And when I install this class validator, I can go to the DTO and define some decorators like isString, okay, for the name value. And here is number, or probably is integer if I want to make it integer, but in my case, it's a number. And here I want to say is enum, and the enum, as you can see, the enum gives me an error when I open the parentheses, which means it expects some values. Let's go back if I... Okay. So anyway, if I go here inside the enum declaration file, you can see that I must pass a value called entity, and validation options are just optional, but I must provide an entity. Okay, so I have to provide here an entity called pizza size in order to let this this decorator know what enum I'm working with. So yeah, it's expected. And now if I go back to here and try to send, okay, there is nothing preventing the API from nothing preventing the user from sending a string inside the price, right? Although I added these validators or these validation rules. And the reason is because NestJS application is not aware of the validation that I created. These are just decorators. I have to add something to our root application in order to let it know that, hey NestJS application, I want you to validate any incoming request. So to do that, I go to main.ts, because remember, in main.ts is where we do the root level work for our application. Here, after creating the application, I can define app dot, I forgot the name, I think it's valid global, yeah, set global, oh no, let me check on my notes. Global, yeah, use global. And you can see here I have global filters, global guards, global interceptors, and global pipes. And what I want is global pipes, okay? And inside the global pipes, I want to define something called a validation pipe. Validation pipe. Okay. And since we define the validation pipe as a global pipe, this means that any incoming request will be validated by this pipe. And if I go to Postman and send the request, okay, I think something is broken here. Class transformer package is missing, so I have to install this class transformer. The reason is because class validator depends on class transformer, so I have to install it. Clear npm install class transformer. Let's see if I refresh. Okay, now it should work fine. If I send, yeah, if I send the request, you see the price is a string and I get an error saying price must be a number conforming to the specified constraints. And also if I try to change the size to something like, hey, and here I change it to 8 and click on send, you see also an error message saying size must be one of the following values, small, medium, and large. And how was NestJS the application was aware of the values large, medium, and small? It's because we defined this enum inside this validator, or this decorator is enum, and I pass it this enum pizza size. Okay, so everything is connected. Now I want to change it to small and click on send. Yes, it's working as expected, but there is an issue here. If you see, I'm sending something called toppings on top of our values, which is enum, price, and size. By the way, if I decide to remove this and click on send, I will receive an error. Size must be one of the following, because it's not optional. If I go to DTO here, all these values must be passed. None of them is optional. So anyway, when I send the request with the mandatory properties like size, price, and name, but at the same time I add something from my own like toppings, and I click send, the API doesn't consider it as a security risk or something. It responds back as usual, but sometimes we need to prevent that from happening. We need to confine the incoming request to the shape that we expect. So if we are expecting only name, price, and size, and we want to prevent the user from sending anything else like toppings or whatever, we need to add some logic in order to prevent that user. But luckily in NestJS we can do that so easily by going to the main TS, because it's where we do root level logic, and I can define an object, and inside this object I can pass some values. For example, here it's called whitelisted as, whitelist as true. When we define whitelist as true, we see when I send these 4 values. Okay, when I send these 4 values in the response, although if you remember in the controller, where is the create, this one, I'm returning back the body. But when I return the body, I don't return this value. I'm returning only the mandatory values. Why? Because this one was filtered out automatically by our validation pipe, because I set the whitelist to true. And also, if I want to take it to the next level in security, I can say forbid non-whitelisted as true. In this case, any values or any properties that are not defined in our DTO will be automatically not only filtered out, but also will throw an error. Let's see in our case here, if I click on send, you see there is an error, bad request, and generic error 400. Property toppings should not exist. So once I remove this and click on send, expected double quotes, so now if I click send, you see that everything is working as expected. Name, price, and size are being returned back. So I know that my validation pipe is working as expected. Now if I want to go to the app module, if you see here, we talked already that the app module is connected to the pizzas module, but also we have app controller and app service. But these services or these controllers are doing nothing actually. They are just created automatically by NestJS when we created the application. So I need to remove them by removing this and removing this, and also removing these 2 lines. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider subscribing to my channel to get notified about the next videos in this series, and also make sure to check out the description box down below where you get access to the GitHub repository of this pizzeria application, and it will get updated with every new video. Also, I would really appreciate it if you go and support me by buying me a pizza or two. That will support my creative work, my content, and my work. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.